Hi, today I want to share with you how to create a skein of yarn in order to natural dye. A skein of yarn is where the yarn is looped into a large loop and then twisted to create a skein. So here I have a large loop of yarn that I twist up to create my skein. So to make this, I'm going to show you how to use a Niddy Noddy, which is this tool right here. It's a staff in the middle with two ends that are going in opposite directions. I have a spool here of wool yarn that I'm going to be winding onto my Niddy Noddy. Scissors, a pencil, and a notepad to take a note of how many wraps you do on the Niddy Noddy, and a measuring tape. So for your measuring tape, in order to know how much yarn you are going to be winding onto your Niddy Noddy, we're going to take a measurement of the Niddy Noddy. And if you just recently bought your Niddy Noddy, the package probably has this listed on it, but if not, I'll show you how here. So I'm going to hold the measuring tape onto the top of one of the ends of the crossbars and then wrap it to the next piece across, so at an angle up. Wrap it there, go back down and around the other end, and then up and over this last end and meet where you left off. And it looks like my measuring tape isn't even long enough to make this measurement, but I'm going to guesstimate. So I made it to 60 inches, and I have about 2.5 more inches here. So I've got 62.5 inches in length. So I'm going to take my notepad and write that down, 62 inches, just as a reference. So I'll set aside the measuring tape, my scissors. And if you don't have a Niddy Noddy, you can do the same process in the top of a chair. Do it in the beams of the chair or in the legs of a stool. You can wrap around the legs of a stool and you just do the same measurement around that distance to take the measurement of how much yardage you're creating. So here I'm going to take the end, create a knot, a loop, a knotted loop into the end of the yarn, and place that over the end of one of the Niddy Noddy ends. So to wrap a Niddy Noddy, set it on the table in front of you so that one side's sticking up and one side's laying flat. Stick your loop over the end that's sticking up, like so, and then wrap to the side so that it creates a angle line, and grab onto the middle of your Niddy Noddy. So I'm going to wrap over this end, then flip the Niddy Noddy over, go around the opposite side, then go up and over this end, and then under and around where I started. So to set this on the table, now it's opposite of where we started. Down here on this side is where we began, and that is one wrap. So one wrap is 62.5 inches on my Niddy Noddy. That'll be different on your Niddy Noddy, but I'm going to count my wraps as I go to track that yardage. So I'll go through that again. So I'm going up this time, and unwrap it as you go off of your spool, over and around, down and across, under, and then across again, across, around, and across, and up and around, and over and under, and then around this end, and up and around this side, and then down. And so you continue to do this motion over and over again, and each wrap is a different amount. And don't worry, if you lose count, you can always come back later and count the strands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can do that at the very end if you want, if you just want to wrap. If you're looking for a certain number of yardage to create a project, then I would check every once in a while to make sure you're on the right track. But the motion, as you get smoother with your wrapping on a Niddy Noddy, you'll be able to wrap more smoothly, and you're just rotating the Niddy Noddy around so that you can reach all of the ends. And you can even set your spool of yarn on the ground so that it's either easier to pull from. And so now as I'm pulling, I'm not having to unwrap as I go. I can just pull off and it comes straight off the spool up onto the Niddy Noddy. And just follow that initial pattern that you created until you have enough wraps. And I'll pause here and take a look at how many wraps I have. So when you've reached where you started, I started right here, so I'm going to bring this around. So that is an equal number. Where you start is where you want to end. So I'll count in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 wraps. And if I stop here, I'm going to just note how many wraps on my pad of paper so that I can look back on that as reference. So I'm going to end this here because I'm just going to do a sample batch for a natural dye batch. So then grab more of your yarn and you're going to cut 5 inch length of your yarn to tie your wrap, your skein. So let's do 6 5-inch lengths. And I'm just estimating the 5 inches. 4, 5, 6. Okay. So now we're going to do a butterfly tie, and a butterfly tie is more effective on more yarn. When you have more yarn on your wraps, the butterfly tie will separate the wraps so that they don't clump together and they receive the natural dye more evenly. For right now, because we only have a few wraps on here, it's not going to be as important, but I'll show you how to do it here. So to do a butterfly wrap, you're going to break the yarn into 3 parts, and you're going to take the end and basically find the middle and take one end over and one end under, and then bring the bottom end up and the top end under, so that now it's twisted, it's looped around that first section. Now the top end goes over the middle section and under the next section, and bring the bottom strand up around the middle section and over the last section. And so now you have a twining or a butterfly tie to hold your yarn together, and loosely tie the ends of that yarn together to create a loose tie around your yarn. So this will keep the yarn loose as you're dyeing it, and also hold it in place so that it doesn't go all over the place in your dye pot. So do that for each section. And then if you have a lot of yarn and you want to make sure that it doesn't get tangled, you can do it at the ends as well. So basically, you could also see this knot as a weave pattern and over under pattern, and I'll show you that on the next one. So splitting your section of yarn into 3 parts, putting 2 fingers in there and taking an end and going over the first one, under the second one, and over the first one, and then taking the other end and going under around that first one, up and over the middle one, and then under the second one. So now they're opposite and they're looped around all of the strands. So you have an over under or a butterfly pattern. Tie the end here. And there's another knot. And I'll do this last section here. Okay, so I have ties on all 4 sections, and now I can bring this off of the Niddy Noddy, and I have my skein, and if I want to, I could twist this around until it starts to twist up on itself, because that means you'll get your skein. And so now I take the ends and I loop one end into the other, and I have a nice little skein of yarn. And again, the more wraps you do, the larger your skein of yarn. This is quite a bit of yardage of yarn here compared to this little wrap, but that is how to make a skein of yarn. And I'll show you really quick what I was talking about doing the skein on a stool. Here's my stool legs. I'll wrap around here. So I'm going to take the measurement of the distance I'm wrapping. I could either do just the 2 or go all the way around and do all 4 legs. 4 legs gets me to 48 inches. So I would take a note of that on my pad of paper just so that I can remember. Again, create your loop, tie a loop in the end of your yarn, the circumference, or estimate the circumference of the leg of the stool, put it over, and then place your yarn on the floor, and then wrap it around the legs, as many wraps as you need for your yardage. Like so. And that is how to wrap around a stool if you don't have a Niddy Noddy. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Please subscribe below to get notified of new videos that come out, and check out these new videos.